You're such an asshole.
Continuing on with the, I don't know if I call it a flood, but a consistent flow of these marriage marriage sharing stories. This is a successful one. Let me go to the original email. Hey, I've got an extremely rare successful marriage story for your new real world marriage series if you're interested in hearing it. And despite the story, I still strongly oppose marriage as it is a major outlier. I'm for the original. I'm for the happy ones. I am. Like I said, out of the literally thousands, perhaps tens of thousands of married people I've met in my half a century of existence, I know 3 that were happy. So I'm and also in intellectual honesty. Yeah, I want to hear the happy ones. Here's a story about a successful marriage. Yeah, I know that's practically unheard of now. I was born as the youngest of 3 to a middle class family, also rare as shit now considering the middle class is essentially dead. My father is an old school country boomer in rural America. He grew up on a farm and definitely loves the outdoors, but he is no stereotypical redneck. To many, on the outside, he comes off as being extremely quiet and introverted, as he only talks to people if he likes them and keeps to himself most of the time. He's an extremely intelligent, naturally alpha man who speaks with his actions rather than his words. Despite his introverted nature, he supposedly has had his wild days as a teenager and slept with plenty of women before he met my mother in his mid-20s. He even tells me to get practice girlfriends, which wouldn't be bad advice if marriage was still a good idea. Well, I mean, okay, if marriage isn't around, well, why not get practice girlfriends? That's all that's kind of left then, isn't it? My mother allegedly was a virgin when she met my father in her early 20s. She was extremely attractive, fit, and feminine in her youth and came from a large family just like my father, of which her father was a hard-ass World War II combat vet. So your dad had his dad around, worked on your farm, and the mom came from your grandpa was a hard-ass World War II vet. Wonder if that had any effect on, I don't know. They dated for a couple years before getting married and didn't waste all their money on a wedding. It was basic and cheap. My mother even had a friend who was a seamstress make her wedding dress to save money with you mean like the person they were marrying was more important than the day itself. Interesting. My mother, with the majority of the money being spent on a decent honeymoon. Afterwards, my mother gave birth to my siblings, twin brother and sister, then myself. They then purchased their first house and lived frugal, frugal. What does that mean? I don't like the sound of that. Doesn't sound like there was a Range Rover. If that's frugal, strange word. For many years without any vacations or constant dining out. My mother happily dropped out of college and quit her job upon the birth of my brother and sister. Well, why would she do that? And remained a stay-at-home mom until the 3 of us entered high school. Well, why would she do that? God, Mom, man, your mom must really love you kids and not her dumbass career. I'll say it right now to any of the women, like dropping off your kids at daycare so you can go work. You don't love your kids and you're a despicable human being. I understand the temper, like, yeah, okay, you gotta go occasionally the use of daycare. But if you're like, it's like daycare, no, I don't want to raise the kids. You're a despicable human being. My father worked as a mechanic full-time while also attending college full-time for a bachelor's in electrical engineering and helping to raise us 3 kids. Your dad had a STEM degree? I thought he was just going to play video games, smoke pot, and major in music therapy. Even though my mother did the majority of the housework, my father did the same home maintenance, utilizing electrical and mechanical skills. Oh, gross, but he was a mechanic. Ooh. Instead of hiring laborers, and is a skilled carpenter, so he made most of our furniture himself to save money. Boring. In spite of all this work, he still somehow found time to often play with us as toddlers because he loved you. Still loves you. It's amazing how the simple solution is putting other people first and loving your family. It's amazing. Just amazing. Could you imagine Megan Rapinoe, the soccer? Could you imagine her like ever putting anyone aside from herself above herself? Could you ever imagine her actually being in love? I think one of the reasons why this was even possible is because he has always taken care of himself and been in great physical condition. Even now at 60 years old, he still water skis nearly every day and exercises. Good on him. I bet you him and your ma still bang. I bet you they do. When you're fat and have shitty health, you will not be able to do all of this no matter how hard you try. My mother's role is not to be understated, as she is always there to support my family and father, and happily fills her role in the family as the cook, house cleaner. She's insanely strict when it comes to cleanliness and makes any space she's living look like a 5-star hotel because she has pride. And I don't want to like throw too many modern day women's brains for a curveball here, but homekeeping is a real job. That's no joke work. All right. I've done both. Like, I got to maintain the home and do all the carpentry and repairs and all that. If you're going to maintain a good home and raise children, that is a full-time job. But I could just pay someone else to do it, to have a rando take care of my kid. Why is daycare so expensive? And main parental support for my brother, sister, and I. She understood that with how hard my father works, it was very generous of him to even play with all of us at all after a long day. So she never took it for granted. It did most of the heavy lifting when it came to raising us. She was essentially the first line of communication with school or any issues that came up. If she couldn't handle it, my father would step in. I remember these days. And when he did, you knew you were in deep shit if you had done something wrong. He may be quiet, but he does not play around when it comes to discipline. Also, probably because he wanted to enjoy life. Now, sit down. Are you in your sitting down chair? Let me fly this theory I have over your head. You see if you catch it. What if he loved you and wanted to spend time with his family? What about, whoa. He loved his children. And so if you kids were screwing up, it took away from his dream. What if his dream was to have exactly what he had and spend time with you kids because he loved you? What if that was what you did? And so if you screwed up and he got pissed, he was pissed because he's a very busy man, but he also was pissed because you took away the thing that meant the most to him. Spending time with you, fun time with you kids, not the disciplining. Everything wasn't always smooth sailing. My parents had a rough patch for a little when we were still very young. I remember a time when we were all sent outside. They regularly kicked our asses out and made us play outside while they could be heard arguing inside. In spite of this, they never abused each other or talked badly about each other in any regard. No matter what was going on, they always supported each other. Contrast with the previous case number 6. Yeah, number 6, where she's like, I'm putting my foot down because I said so. I don't tell this story as some form of cope or try to convince people to get married. I tell it knowing it's an extreme outlier as an example of how society and by extension the legal system has changed to make marriage a trap for the stupid and naive. I think you also, in combination with the previous cases, it wasn't a Scooby-Doo mystery, but you have made it very clear what makes marriage works: selflessness and love. And not materialism and not trinkets and doodads and master's degrees. And a strong father in this particular case. After my brief time in the Army, I returned home to stay with my parents for a couple of years while working and going to college. I only went because I was paid to by the government. It's called a scam. During that time, I got to observe my parents now as an adult with some real-world experience under my belt. During my observations, I compiled a list of what attributes majorly helped our family and their marriage be successful. These are not arranged in order of importance. 1, they always supported each other. No matter what terrible situation they were currently in or how much they disliked each other at the moment, they never talked ill towards each other in the presence of others or behind others' backs. Nor did they ever resort to petty insults. My mother specifically never ran for problems like many modern women do today. She handled them like an adult rather than acting like a child that needs everything done for them. This behavior is crucial. Oh, you can't, yeah. Girls think we just go to the office and sip scotch like it's the Don Draper show. No, we're busy. We come back. We don't need more bullshit. This behavior is crucial in any relationship, whether it be romantic or business. Never look broken and at each other's throats in front of onlookers, even if you really are. Always keep the appearance of unity and deal with your problems privately and respectfully. I've observed nearly all relationships like this quality now. The support also applies to my siblings and I, as they supported our goals, but did not hesitate to point out when an idea was stupid and offer advice. Oh, yeah, and list the kids. Kids are there for slave work, obviously. They make great jam. They make great jam. They did not enable bad behavior, though most people get this wrong. On the contrary, they are still to this day extremely harsh by most people's low standards. For example, it's well established that if my siblings and I were to be shitty children, my parents would not hesitate to write us out of the will and disown us. Good for them. This goes the other way too, with my parents not expecting us to help them when they become elderly if they mistreat us. My family does not operate on the idiotic belief that just because you're related by blood, you can treat a family like shit or should allow them to treat you like shit. They can and should disown family members for behaving badly or damaging your life. If you are horrible parents, you don't owe them shit, and you should not feel bad about keeping them out of your life. The same applies to parents who did everything they could, but still ended up with bad children. You wouldn't allow a stranger to treat you like that, so why your own family? They should be held to an even higher standard. 2, they understood their roles. Oh. You mean like the division of labor there might be like men might be better at things than women and women might be better at things than men. And we should both go do those things. You want to see something funny? Watch a gal pour concrete. Go watch it do that. This is mainly an issue with modern women. Men are still expected to perform traditional roles, but women are held to zero standards now. My mother has always taken pride in what she did and knew her role as a housewife was crucial. It is crucial. It may be boring and dull day to day, but she knew my father couldn't be as successful as he became while raising children without her help. She didn't sit around all day and get fat like most housewives do now, or not to mention outsource the kids. Instead, she was always working her ass off to raise us and make my father's life easier. Make the man's life easier. I'm confused. Wait. Not make it more difficult? I thought it was supposed to make it more difficult. I thought it was to harangue and bother men with petty things and then to create drama and cry because your life wasn't perfect. Make the man's life easier. Man, I don't even know what you're talking about. I have no idea what you're talking about. She knows life and marriage isn't some cute fairy tale where everything should be fun and happy all the time. And if it's not, you should immediately divorce without even trying. She understood raising kids is expensive, hard work, and not fun. She understood the kids always come first. Man, there's a lot of crazy concepts and words I don't know. Frugal, easier, come first. Who are you? What language do you speak, sir? Followed by my father, then her. She makes sure my father knows he is appreciated. Stay thin, be hot, have sex. So the same applies to my father. He makes sure she knows she's appreciated. He knew his role as the family provider, put the kids and my mother first, and he worked his ass off for decades. They don't try to change each other or expect too much. 3, they don't try to change each other or expect too much. This is one I personally struggle with. My mother didn't demand some rich 10 out of 10 guy to cater to her every need when she was in her prime. She chose to date and eventually marry what was essentially an average man at the time. The only 3 qualities my dad had going from the beginning was his intelligence, physique, and work ethic. Dude, right now, okay, first, let's go into Zoomer world, which you're going to address a little bit here later. Young women are not trained to identify intelligence. They can identify visually, physique, or work ethic. They are not capable of identifying 2/3 of that, let alone whether the man, I would say, has a moral, ethical code or a background or an upbringing by which he's going to employ those 3 assets correctly and productively in the future, becoming a successful, reliable man. Yeah, but they want the finished product. I mean, they want the money now. But the girls aren't trained that way. They're not trained to identify anything, just what the media and their teachers tell them. Although he was and still is in great shape, he is a relatively small man and was dirt poor when he began dating. Similar, a short guy. Oh God, no. He's a mutant. Similarly, my father didn't demand perfection from my mother, especially as she aged. Don't get me wrong, it's crucial that you take care of your body as you age, and both men and women who get fat while in a relationship are disrespecting their spouse to an extreme degree. I'd say it's equivalent to cheating. But everyone ages, it gets less attractive over time. It cannot be avoided. 4, there weren't pussies when it came to disciplining my siblings and I. They weren't pussies when it came to disciplining my siblings and I. They never enabled bad behavior and were swift to punish, whether physically or psychologically. This also applied between the two of them. My parents never tolerated disrespect from each other and would immediately shut that shit down. I see many men falling into this nowadays. You don't passively sit around. Oh, you're on it. They step out of line once. You got to be on it. You can't sit and think about it. You're like, hey, run that past me again. Let's try that again. That's a good line. Let's try that again. You don't passively sit around like a little bitch until she starts physically abusing you. You should never allow any relationship to even get that far. If she disrespects you, immediately make it clear that you do not tolerate that behavior and take action to ending the relationship. Yeah, there's no like gradation. It's like, this is over. Like, there's the door. If she does not heed your warning, don't merely say things without action. If she hits you once, immediately leave the relationships. Oh, yeah. Oh, done. Done. Adults do not behave like that. Children do. No matter how good the person is, everyone has their moments of disrespect or testing your authority, especially as a man. So knowing how to handle these situations is required for a relationship. If only there was you had the benefit of a strong father. If only kids who didn't have a strong father, if there was a resource for them to go to, kind of like a dad that they never had, but available in course form on a platform like Teachable. Oh, wait, link below. Or if you want to Google search the dad you never had. But Aaron, you're not a dad. You damn right I'm not. That's why I interviewed a ton of fathers. Celebrity fathers. Rollo, Phil Foster, Rich Cooper, all those guys. My favorite example of, 5, they never take each other for granted. This is self-explanatory, but extremely difficult to achieve after being in a relationship and marriage for decades. Oh, that's why I go to the gym. They make sure the relationship, 6, they make sure the relationship was rock solid before marriage. Many idiots nowadays use marriage as an attempt to fix a shitty relationship. I have no idea how this makes any sense. Yeah, and they have kids too. My parents made sure they were in agreement on all the important stuff before getting married. How to raise the children, what is expected of each other, etc. They didn't give a shit about each other's favorite football team, astrology, signs, or all the other useless garbage people discuss now without ever touching on anything serious. It's really important that, well, for the women, it's vitally important that you are a socialist. You have to be a feminist and a socialist. I would say for a marriage to work, you got to make sure she's not. I'm not saying she's got to be a Republican or a libertarian, though that is hot. That is hot. But she cannot be putting the government and the state and vagina, or it's not even vagina, it's like the cultural cult surrounding having one. It's obscure mental illness. Like, no. There should be no God before you. Literally. Unless you're Christian, then God is before everyone else. But outside that, dude, then it goes right there. You're the number one person in their life. It's very simple. I hate to say it, but as we've got more on these, you start to realize that women really do view men as like a consumable product. Like, you're a product, you're a car, you're a thing. And why aren't you behaving the way I expect you to? You're not a sentient entity. You're just a check mark. My favorite example of this is the idiot who gets married just to find out she doesn't want children. I know. What is with that? What, you didn't have that conversation? I had that conversation with many women who I think kind of liked me a lot. One gal I did know liked me a lot. And I'm like, no. She's like, well, I have to go. I'm like, no, you don't. You're really, no, you don't have to. Yeah, I got a great plan B for you, man. Let me tell you about plan B. All right. We don't have kids. And we just have a ton of sex, and we play volleyball all the time, and we go adventure, and we go hike, and we make a lot of money, and we eat like kings, and we retire early. How does that sound? No. Stupid people wanting to have kids. Didn't even bother to ask in the years beforehand. These are the attributes that I observe, which are nearly non-existent in most relationships and marriages. Here we go. Here's his report from the field. I spent a good 8 years dating Gen Z women. It wasn't as bad as you'd imagine. It was as bad as you'd imagine, if not worse, before giving up on the pursuit altogether, as they are mostly trash. Your odds of finding a decent girl for marriage are slim to none now. Also linked below is a book called The Book of Numbers, which analyzes your statistical chances of success and the price you're going to pay to get it. Maybe you might want to read that. Maybe you want to invest the $15 and assess your, do the calculus and look at your odds before spending 20 years of your life and $150,000 of money on that. I'm no economist, but it seems $15 would be a wise investment in the 2 hours it takes to read it. Your odds of finding a decent girl for marriage are slim to none now. And if you do find one, you are so bitter and mistrusting after years of dealing with shitty women that you do not believe her. This goes for men too, but to a lesser degree, as men appear to me to mainly be suffering from being ignored by arrogant women and devolving into weak and pathetic simps and cucks. I don't blame these women for making fun of them or saying they don't need men with how Democrat these men have become. Oh, I'm sorry. How worthless these men have become. I'm sorry. I added the Democrat part there. I love that. So after the Democrat Party and all the Democrat people have told me I'm just this horrible, disgusting person because of my skin color and my race, and I'm a not them, and I want low taxes and a balanced budget. I love seeing Democrat women get the men they voted for. It's one of the best desserts of revenge ever. Add on to this fact that our legal system is a joke at best now, and you have a real shitstorm. Several of the sexist and ridiculous marriage laws already existed when my parents got married, but the difference was that society itself functioned differently at the time. A family could still be supported on one income. They still can today. If you don't believe me, go get Poor Richard's Retirement. Breaks it down how. Judges weren't prone to ignoring any laws that favored the husband while enforcing those which favored the wife. Women could commit heinous crimes and receive little or no punishment just for having a vagina. Feminism hadn't reached the roots of society yet. Nowadays, it's a completely different situation, and marriage is effectively for chumps, at least for men, even if you meet the perfect wife material woman. For women, marriage is still a smart move. Financially, it's a smart move. Legally, it's a smart move. I don't think these women are any happier. I go through the previous case. That woman was miserable marrying a very responsible, upstanding, productive man. They're not happy. I mean, I don't know which case it was, but go back to the case where the woman divorced the guy, pissed away all the money and child support on shoes and baubles, and was squatting in a house without any heat with her son. She wasn't happy. So I try to reason with women like, look, you're not going to be happy. Maybe you get some money out of the deal, but at least save it. And most of them don't. For their own sake, I'd say, look, marriage is a bad deal for both men and women, but financially there's an upside for women. Yes. But how many women consolidate those financial gains is another issue. Women is still a smart move, considering you can legally do whatever you want and your husband can't do shit about it. If he does try to do anything or things don't work out, you can rob your now ex-husband with the government at your back as long as they get their cut. My parents are mostly unaware of these changes as traditional boomers. Well, I think they have to be. And let me tell you why. I know that their marriage sounds bulletproof. It sounds wonderful. And maybe they're inoculated against the rest of the world, but they are from the gold medal in the divorce Olympics generation. The boomers put everyone to shame. They had to have known friends or relatives that got divorced. They had to. So it wasn't that they were unaware. It may have reinforced them we're not doing that. They probably saw all the ships getting sunk around them in their baby boomer fleet of marriage. They said, we're not doing that. But my father is at least pretty red pill, so he's not totally clueless or naive. Interestingly, my mother took a liking to Kevin Samuels' content when he was still kicking and became much more aware of these changes going on the outside world. She even agrees that most of these women in my generation are trash, but she does still want my brother and I to magically find a unicorn and get. Well, she wants what's best for you. She wants you to have what she and your dad have. And no doubt they want grandchildren. As she still has not accepted how messed up marriage court is or just how bleak the situation is, especially for millennials and Gen Z. Luckily, my brother is extremely red pill, is not going to fall for it. He also regularly watches your content. Well, say hi to your brother for me. Give your mom a hug. Give your mom a hug. Everyone thinks their marriage will pan out like my parents' marriage, but most do not. Out of all the families, I've seen only a couple ever come close to being as stable as mine. The rest were varying degrees of train wrecks. My parents are unaware that they have won the marriage lottery. And if they want to get the book, I go through it. Only 14% of marriages are successful, and I define that as till death do you part and happily married. And I don't even think it's 14, to be perfectly honest, because empirically, when I go onto the real world and look, that's based on survey data and polling. When you go out in the real world, it's one in the thousands. Again, I've known thousands of couples. I've only known 3 that were madly in love with each other. Older couples, obviously. They should write a book, but I don't think it will sell well because it's going to tell girls like, hey, stop being a royal pain in the ass and stop putting yourself at the center of the universe. It's going to tell these soy boys to hit the gym and stop being Democrat pussies. That's my story. Thanks for all you do, and I'll light up a cigar for you. Cheers. Well, thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. So you guys, the link below, The Dad You Never Had, the Book of Numbers, Analyzing the ROI and the Pursuit of Women, Bachelor Pad Economics. You want to get your finances together. If you can't find a girl, you're not raising a family, you should probably be working on early retirement. Bachelor Pad Economics. There you go. Financial planning for all men. Let's go to the super chat if there are. We got one. Drew, my folks are boomer parents, been married 37 plus years. It is possible. Yeah. Boomers, there's have all the 3 I know. Well, one was World War II generation. The other 2 I know were boomers, still are boomers, still alive. I take that back. There's 4. There's 3 boomer couples in the World War II generation that passed away. All right. More on the way. See you guys later. Toodles.